Let's continue now with our list of the 101 most commonly misused GRE words. As I said before, I think this is brilliant for anyone looking to increase and improve their English vocabulary, not just those studying for the GRE. Let's start here with personal versus personnel. And just for those who haven't seen one of my videos before, I'm going to give you my definition, and I might not always know the definition of all the words, and then you can compare that to what they say. Personal versus personnel. This one I know. If something's personal, it's to do with you. It's private. It's personal information. You don't necessarily want it known to the public. Or personal can be used as a synonym for subjective. Oh, that's a personal opinion. That's what that person thinks, but maybe other people think differently. Personnel is a much simpler word. It simply means staff. People working for an organisation. That company has great personnel, or this shop has very professional personnel. People, still, you've got that word person there, but it's more formal, personnel, formal. It's working for an organisation, staff. I think they're going to agree with this. Personnel is a noun and means people who work for an organisation, whereas personal means belonging to that particular person. Maybe some private beliefs or subjective opinions, for example. Okay, moving on. Practicable versus practical. Practical on the right is easier to define. It means pragmatic, logical, reasonable, realistic, not pie in the sky, not abstract, not highfalutin, or a down-to-earth solid solution. It's practical. It's going to work in the real world. It's not just a theory that makes sense logically. It's actually going to make sense in the real world. That's something that's practical. Whereas practicable, the word on the left, means possible. It's nothing to do with whether it's practical or not. It means whether it's possible or not. Could it actually happen at all? If it could happen, it's practicable. And if it's reasonable, logical, down to earth, it's practical. So something could be practicable, possible, without being practical. Like a bad idea, it's not practical, but it is practicable. Interesting words to pronounce there, but I hope I've clarified the difference. And they agree that practicable means possible, feasible, whereas practical means pragmatic. That's another great synonym for practical. Okay, this is a fun one. Proceed versus proceed. So pre means before, and that will help you to remember that precede means coming before. One king preceded another, then that first king came first. Or you might know it in the word predecessor. A predecessor is someone who was in your position before you. My predecessor retired, and now I'm in the job. That person preceded you. Or you could say the introduction preceded the main event, something that comes before the main event. To proceed means to start something, launch it off. He proceeded to explain his position. That just means he started to explain his position. You can think of it as being linked to the word procession. A procession starts off and begins and is launched. Well, a person proceeds to do something. So precede, before, proceed is launch or start. The examples they give here is this king preceded this king. Babur came before Humayun. Whereas proceed means start or continue. I proceeded right towards the stage. This person started moving right towards the stage. Also, you can think of it almost as an action. If someone proceeds in a certain direction, it means they start off. They're actually walking in that direction. So it's like a verb in that sense too. There is one extra thing I do want to tell you as a bonus example that they haven't got here. Have you ever heard the word proceeds? That just means the revenue from something. Very different from proceed, but proceeds, with an S at the end, means the revenue you get from something. So you might have a charity event where all of the proceeds, all of the revenue, goes to that charity. I just thought I'd throw that one in there just to help you out as a bonus word. Okay, prescribe versus proscribe. This is a great distinction. To prescribe something is like a doctor telling you should have this. The doctor prescribed penicillin. Or you could use it metaphorically. So the teacher prescribed him to work harder. Although more commonly, you use that word in reference to maybe a doctor. Whereas proscribe is very different. It means prohibit, stop you from doing that thing. The teacher prescribed me from speaking in class. Or in their example, the government prescribed some dangerous medicines this year, forbade, stopped something. They explain prescribe is a verb. It means to order something, to write a prescription, almost always medical. The doctor prescribes some medication, whereas proscribe is forbid something, ban it. Very different words there. Some of you will be stopping me and going, but Philip, I thought pre meant before. But it does in this context. Scribe is almost like to write something, and if a doctor writes something before you receive the medication, it's like an order in advance, that's prescribing it, writing it before so that you can get it. Pre-ordering, essentially. So yet again, etymology has helped us out. What about route versus route? Now, obviously, some people pronounce this differently to me, but for me, a rout is like a gigantic defeat. Our army was routed on the battlefield, destroyed, decimated, ruined. Whereas a route is like a car takes a route through the mountains, or Amy changed her route into work. A set of directions to get you where you're going. Very different words there. Let's see if they agree. Yes, a rout means an overwhelming defeat. The army's bitter rout brought on great shame. Whereas route is a noun. I know I think Americans pronounce that route as well, but either way, the word is different because of the E, and it means a road or path chosen to reach your destination. Let's move along down our route towards the next pair of words. Skeptic versus septic. Skeptic, I'm more confident on. Skeptic means to doubt things, or if in general you are a skeptic, it means you doubt what you hear until you see evidence. It doesn't necessarily mean that you're cynical and hardened, but it does mean you don't take things at first appearance. You like to investigate. You trust but verify. So it's not necessarily derogatory, it's not an insult, it just means someone who thinks about things before they accept them. Septic is a strange kind of word I don't use very often. I think of a septic tank. I think septic means like infected, poisoned. It's like the only way I know it is that wound's gone septic. It's like infected, covered in gangrene. It's like a bad thing that happens to a wound that makes it far worse. I wonder if it's related to the word sepsis, which is a way of dying from that kind of thing. Probably is. Anyway, as you can see, very different words there. Let's see what they say. A skeptic is someone who doubts what others believe, exactly. The skeptic did not believe the priest's words. Whereas septic means, yes, infected with poison. Okay, I didn't know it was that bad. I guess any infection probably counts. The nurse cleaned and dressed the septic wound. And now for the absolute classics. There versus there versus there. People make this mistake all the time. Sometimes even I, when I'm rushing, I'm typing, make this mistake. Let's see if I can explain it without their fancy jargon. There is a place. It's over there. Notice you've got the word here at the end of the word. It's a place here, and then there's there. They're places. Whereas this there belongs to someone. You've got an I in there, and you can think of that I as meaning there's someone there who it belongs to. This hat is theirs. It belongs to them. That's their reward. I've got my reward elsewhere. You're pushing it away. You're saying it belongs to someone else. You can think of the I as indicating a person to whom it belongs to. Not the person themselves, but another person. Again, there is a place. Look over there versus there belonging to someone. Look at their house with the IR at the end. Finally, there is a shortened form of they are. So anytime you're using there as a shortened version of saying they are, that's when you use they apostrophe re. Very different circumstance. It basically means what it says. They are doing something. They're over there. They're my friends. All of those are shortened forms of they are my friends. They are over there, etc. That's my explanation of the difference. I really hope that helped. By the way, if any of these definitions and clarifications have helped, please do leave a like and leave a comment as always. And again, they're going to use the fancy jargon of preposition, determiner, contradiction, or contraction, I should say, but I don't really use those terms. I've just explained it in my own way. Their examples are, I want to go there, the place. Why did you take their belonging, money? And there are relatives. They are our relatives. Great distinctions. People make this mistake all the time. Okay, tortuous versus torturous. Now, I use the first word quite a lot, not really the second one. Tortuous means complex, difficult, hard to get to. You could think of a tortuous path across the mountains, like really complicated with lots of ups and downs and nooks and crannies. Complex, difficult, not practical, as we saw that word earlier, practical. Impractical, you would say. Often when you're describing a route, as we saw earlier, or a path, you describe it as tortuous. The tortuous ascent to the top of the mountain. Whereas torturous, I don't really use, but I can clearly see is going to be linked to the word torture. I'm guessing meaning is like torturing you. Let's find out. The first one, the entire route was tortuous and full of potholes. Yes, curved, twisted, winding. And torturous means causing pain or torment. Yeah, causing torture to you. Last night was a torturous experience. It was almost like being tortured, as the bed bugs did not allow me to sleep at all. So they seem quite similar in how they look and how they're both negative, but the first one is very different. It's more descriptive to do with twisting, winding, curving, whereas the second one's much more explicitly negative about being tortured. Okay, venal versus venial. I always used to get this wrong. Let's see if I've remembered. Venal, I'm pretty sure now I remember, means corrupt. The venal politician, someone who takes bribes and is corrupt and you can easily twist their arm with some money. I'm 99% sure that venal means corrupt. Venial is a sin in the Catholic Church. And what's the other one called? I can't remember. Cardinal. Yeah, cardinal means like a really serious sin, whereas venial means like a little sin. Like you shouldn't do it. Like gossiping maybe. Actually, gossiping is maybe a big sin, but I don't know what a small sin would be. Jaywalking. It's a small thing you shouldn't do, but it's not like super harsh. That's a venial versus cardinal sin. It's like a really bad one in the Catholic Church. Let's see if they agree with that. Venal is an adjective. It means easily bribed, exactly, corrupt. The clerk was a venal man. Whereas venial means easily forgiven, pertaining to a minor sin, exactly. The judge had to forgive the acquit's venial misdeed, small, trivial. Okay. And finally, weather versus weather. That's an easy one. The weather, spelt in this way, means raining or sunshine, clouds or snow. It's a description of the environment at that moment in your place. Whereas weather is like whether or not. Whether or not you're coming, I'm still going to go to the cinema. I can't decide whether to wear brown or blue. That kind of weather. Big difference, and a big difference in the spelling, although not a difference in the pronunciation. The weather looks good today, but I don't know whether you are joking or not. Interesting distinction there, of course. Thank you for watching all the way to the end. Do leave a like and a comment, and either way, see you in the next video.